maybe a very good and well introduction there. I just want to double check. Have you muted yourself, Psycho? On OBS?
Hello and welcome everybody to the BFBS Pro League Take 2. Am I audible? Give us a very gentle nod of the head if you can hear me. I'm sure you can, people. Yes, you can. Thank you very much, Tangerine. Yes, you join us here live for the fourth and final community qualifier of the BFBS Pro League Season 2 now. Just yesterday, we witnessed a magical story and a reversal at the top of the hierarchy between SEA Dragons and the British Army Esports Buzzards at the top end of the competition. But as we work our way back to the very start of the points gathering process, Danny, well, this is team's final opportunity to do exactly that.
I'll sit there and say that you can guarantee on BFBS this isn't scripted in any way. That was a much better introduction this time, Owen, I won't lie. But it's Judgment Night. That's how I would describe it. Arguably Judgment Week. Plenty of still, of course, the action. You rightly pointed out, of course, with the SEA Dragons' final victory lap they actually put across there to guarantee themselves land qualification. And we're back here once again for the final time for Season 2. And you know what? When we sit here and you sort of cast our minds back to things here, you just have to sit there and say, a lot has changed here. There's a few teams that have, new players, the likes of, say, Beale going into the Typhoons, no longer Pierce himself being sort of that star player. And then you have the likes of, say, the RAF Mustangs, a potential substitution this evening to the likes of, the Royal Navy, a massive shake-up there where the likes of legendary players, Stimplebog, has stepped up massively in terms of their performances alongside some newcomers. So, do you know what? Keep saying the catchphrase or the phrase, it gets better with each broadcast that we do, but it genuinely does.
It absolutely does. And there is some new talents just for this evening as well, Danny. And you alluded to some potential substitutions for the like of the RF Mustangs, but also the Tornadoes have arrived today with a very fresh roster. So two new players who have never once hit the pitch so far this season. I think we're probably thinking before this competition began, this very community qualifier, we're going to have to wait until next season, Danny. But this is their opportunity to show what they've got.
Well, I mean, quite literally at the start of the season, they were the 8th ranked RAF team. I mean, technically they're 7th, but we'll say they're 8th for the sake of argument, based on their own internal system. And, even based on that factor, it's essentially a 5-man roster from that community coming into BFBS. So they have that sense of ability to swap and change and move across here. But, last season we had one player in particular that always sticks in my head. It's a tad bit disappointed we haven't actually seen him this season. The Sean Dyche. It was fantastic what we saw, from the likes of themselves, Lossy Phantoms as well. So the fact that we're sitting here, talking about new players coming in, it's wonderful to see, first of all. But the fact is that, they've come in at literally the last gallop of the horse race, essentially here. And, is it, a bit of fun, a bit of competition, probably an element of both to them. But, you just have to look at the Typhoons, or not the Typhoons, the Tempest last season. They were arguably, the 4th best team. The competition just squeaked themselves into that conversation. Now, suddenly, potential favourites going into land. So, you have to start somewhere. And it's tonight is they're going to be their beginning to their story.
And for some, this jolly well could be the end as well, as teams are offered their last opportunity to qualify through to the Swiss stage. So I think it's important we give everyone a reminder of the format across these next couple of weeks. And I believe we have a juicy group stage graphic prepared as we take a look at the teams involved today. So for Group A, RAF Storm Shadows, they're in 1st seed. Mustangs 2nd, Kestrel's 3rd seed, Shadows 4th, Harriers 5th, and so on and so forth. So it's a bit of a snaking seeding that we were discussing earlier on in the broadcast, Danny, or rather in the green room itself. But what this has led to is quite an amalgamation of teams within the Royal Air Force in the same group this time around, Danny.
Oh, we can have plenty of conversations on a lot of those points there. We might as well focus on that fact of the RAF you can't even call it a derby at this point. It's a gathering of teams at that. You know, RAF Storm Shadows, they haven't dropped a game realistically in any of the group stages sort of format. They should go quite through comfortably here. I mean, the debating point really, you know, the RAF Harriers played that show match we mentioned on yesterday's broadcast for the finale of Qualifier 3. Played okay against the Mustangs in that particular lineup. And you know what? For the first two games, it could go toe to toe. RAF Shadows, however, that's the team I would sit here and say that has probably had the worst availability for a number of reasons here, and arguably a shame here. You know, I'm not ruling them out here of not qualifying for the LAN here. I'm being a tad bit on the realistic side. They've got a lot to have to go right for them. They have that sort of opportunity given to them here.
Yeah, the Shadows, that would have to be a serious miracle run almost within the Swiss stage in order for them to have a sniff at qualifying through to those grand finals. So they're currently sat on 8 points for perspective versus the joint 8th in points teams of the Kestrels and Mustangs 16. So they have to gain an extra 8 on top of either one of those teams across these next couple of events just to give themselves that opportunity. So it's a very difficult and tall order. But of course, we have to give enormous credit to the teams who are able to attend these competitions, even with such serious and such difficult roles sometimes, Danny. And of course, we're very, very thankful for all of the efforts that are put in. On that topic as well, I believe Storm Shadows are missing one player here tonight as well. So Stelios is joining in as the super sub, as we very much know him for, Danny.
Joe, at this point, I may be the worst person, as you know, Psycho would know. I occasionally say, "Oh, I'm retiring from commentary." That's me done here. Stale's a hilarious sort of fellow. You know, says here, I'm no longer the competitive player. I'm not, playing in competitions. And yet every opportunity, essentially somehow sneaks his way onto a lineup, and suddenly here, let's be frank here. I mean, talk about the RAF Shadows, and funny enough, another topic we sat here in the green room debating here, and nearly got them into a top 8 qualification. So, he is a player quality. We know how good he is. He might actually perform better playing with the Storm Shadows roster, and showing how simple it may seem to be in terms of how to do it well, because I might sound daft. It's difficult to play your best when you're in a weaker roster because you're expected to cover. And I think with Stelios, he may actually have a lot more freedom this evening that we haven't quite seen before.
Yeah, absolutely. And Stelios does thrive in those higher ranking rosters, I believe, Danny. You're absolutely right in saying that. And of course, he's got so many years of experience at this point, coaching and competing alongside, in some cases, some of the best talents around the world. And of course, his runs through Europe as a RLCS coach, Danny, I don't think we can speak on enough. And of course, that value translates to any team environment he'll find himself a part of. And he just sort of fits in. It doesn't matter where you put him. He's going to do a solid job of it, that's for sure. But I suppose it's important as well, we mentioned where this leads. So the Swiss stage coming up next week after this community qualifier will be taking these 8 teams you're watching tonight and combining those with 8 invited teams from the tri-service for 5 rounds of Swiss. So it's going to be really, really entertaining as the points sort of turn into a melting pot of possibility, shall we say, Danny? And I do believe we've got the RAF Shadows en route into the lobby, and we're almost good to get underway.
Well, it's going to be certainly an interesting chance of how that points will cascade down, sort of like an old arcade slot machine. Will it be 1, 2, or 3, and the magic coin eventually pushes things through? But that's, of course, another issue, another problem, or another chance of glory. It all depends on the beholder's eye on that one. But for this evening, it is best of 5, Psycho, as we rightly see both of these two sides, wanting to have the chance off at the RAF Shadows. We've sat there and talked about how good of a lineup squeaked their way through it last time around when all the chips were on the table. They needed to go their way. Done it once. Can the lightning strike twice?
For the RAF Shadows, then, potentially one last adventure out in Season 2 to make their dreams possible, getting back up to that Pro League stage. Of course, we've seen the likes of the Grey Man, we've seen the likes of Logan compete across history, Danny, and some of the highest ranking RAF teams through history. Not an easy side to face.
Certainly not here, and I'll sort of sit here and said he was actually in the second highest RAF team. That's his pick in the form of the Tempest alongside Aisha, who is in the same lineup in terms of that. There potentially rumors of movement with him, and then alongside G-Wood, the current RAF captain and leader of the Storm Shadows' roster, who will potentially may see this evening, of course, but he's one of those players you have to sit back and look at, and you just, I always feel like he could have given more. And that's not to say and diminish his quality or ability of a player, but he was one of the very few players to rival the likes of Envy at the Emperor service, just in the 1v1 scene. And very few players could have done that.
That's a lovely finish as well. And the Royal Navy Serpents have their own royalty to their name. Bomber and Runes we've referenced of being part of our F1 25 season, our first sort of venture into the sim racing world, and they're absolute icons over in that esport as well. And this Serpent side as well, I think, has gone a little under the radar so far this competition. They've got 3 points to their name overall, so they are certainly capable of doing some damage when it comes to the Swiss, and they have managed to get a 1-3 record out of Swiss before. So this sort of a match on paper does look very, very tastily close.
It does, and I'll touch that on a second here, but it's just the first time we've had all 3 esports meld together here. A few players from the F1, obviously this is the RL, and our fantastic broadcaster and producer this evening in terms of Tangerine from the League of Legends here.
I mean, possibly, quite possibly. I think Tangerine is certainly a man of many talents, isn't he? But of course, as you rightly suggested, doing the production, the observing, all of the wonderful work that goes behind the scenes to make those League of Legends broadcasts look as splendid as they do. But alas, we change our sort of vision to the dynamics of the pitch at the moment. LW, I think, has to be the highlight player for the Shadows that people need to keep their eye on.
Certainly so. But again, it's the hot topic of what the Royal Navy Serpents can do. You alluded to it, yes, their Swiss run was okay. They've always been a side that can steal a game, and suddenly you always question, if they had a bit more. And the issue of a multi-esport discipline is how do you divide your time up in terms of getting the right sort of element of practice. It's not their being game, and to be fair to them, the fact that they're challenging the likes of the Shadows in this type of matchup already just shows you the level of discipline to the game already.
Definitely so. So far, it's not looking convincing from the Shadows, not as convincing as they might like in a matchup which surely they're going to be looking at to try and favour themselves. It's a cracking shot from Galaxy Reaver, just saved away from that top crossbar.
Bomber keeping that one away here, cut right in the crosshair, so it should be an infield pass, and Hogan is essentially trying to get the block away, and but it's a tad bit unusual for at least the Shadows for lineup, and they're normally a 4-man lineup. Unfortunately, they might be missing that somewhat flexibility to it, because you see Kirk trying to fit in, and it's just perhaps it's just not the right lineup in terms of, because they normally play well interchanging, moving things around here, and always adjusting here. So it's going to be interesting to see how they get that sort of 3rd man right this evening here.
Definitely so, but if there's any team I would look at to get that 3rd man right, I'd quite frankly say Shadows are right up there. Individually, are they going to be up there with the likes of the Buzzards, the SEA Dragons? Maybe not, but they certainly have some brilliant intelligence when it comes to their positioning, their shape, and just knowing the role that they need to play in these situations. And I think it's the experience. That's what it has to come down to, Danny.
Always look at such a key pivotal point, experience. I mean, we sat here and seen very much inexperienced players crumble under the pressure, and the likes of, Steve and Kirk, who's been there so many times, the likes of Logan, to be fair to them. And they've pulled some massive results out of the bag here. And just as it comes through the dying seconds of the game here, Kirk finds a nice way to break the deadlock.
Smart positioning in the infield as well. Just tucked in within that halfway line to be able to shadow the play as that ball comes across. It's a great delivery as well.
Just sit there and alluding the fact what sort of key moments and players sort of done in sort of situations here. I mean, the Shadows did, of course, beat nearly about a year ago now, give or take here, the current RAF Storm Shadows to reach the likes of AFEI over in, I believe it was Germany at the time. Just shows you, the right attitude, the right sort of temperament of player. Get you the results when you need it here and just tip this ball away from danger here. So it should be an RAF lead in the series.
Kurt's going to just push this ball down central and give them one last potential chance. But the RAF Shadows ultimately just had those two little glimmers. And that's all it took, Danny. It's thin margins in game one.
Well, we sat here and saw it in the grand final, just last night alone, and talking about, half chances here and there, and that sometimes is all what you need here. But let's be fair here, the Royal Navy Serpents' only goal so far here was of decent quality. It's just that sort of understanding of the sort of pitch awareness. If they push up in certain elements here and keep that somewhat grip onto the game here, they could find their sort of opportunities somewhat essentially explode with chances here.
And I think the chance maker that you have to keep your eye on for the Serpents, Galaxy Reaver, in my mind, has been just delivering non-stop throughout the competition in the goal scoring department. But also you've got the likes of Bomber with some real serious mechanical prowess as well. And I sort of glanced back to a moment I think we had in week 2 where there was a ceiling shot double touch off the ground to get past the second and third man all in one foul swoop. And it's that sort of magic that the Serpents can really bring.
Sometimes, a little bit of magic is what's required. Other times, it's that staunch bit of the foundational side of the game being absolutely stellar. Logan trying to deliver something off that quality from the kickoff. Doesn't get it into the box, but Herbert, I was going to hope for a dribble from the corner. Didn't happen. He went for the Cox pinch with a shall say a bit bull from that angle.
You know what? I don't mind a Cox pinch. I'm sure you recognise from the religious amount that I rinse and repeat that exact move and tragically fail in our threes games.
Well, there was a period of time about a year ago for about 6 months. That's all what I posted. It was my attempts on.
Maybe we'll be seeing some more on the pitch as LW just can't get a fingertip to that ball. Neither can Galaxy Reaver on the follow-up as the pressure all in favour of Serpents here.
Well, boost make it even more probable for those sort of essentially aggression-like tactics that the Royal Navy wants to introduce into the play there. Fortunately, not happening, and that's a free ball gifted away. Challenge, so it should be a 2v1. Oh, yes.
Oh, my goodness, that would have been ridiculous. I don't think anyone caught it. If they did, thank you to whoever developed the Director cam. Myself and Danny have our own perspectives in the game at the moment, but just wishing people saw that. It was reminiscent of the 2019 goal of the year runner-up. There was like a bump in the midfield and almost a sideball attempt.
And who was the winner of that particular tournament? My mind escapes me at the moment.
I don't know their name, Danny. You'll have to remind me.
There must be a relevance since we both can't remember.
Well, lost to history books it is. LW then. 0 boost in the corner, and I think we've seen him in that exact spot quite a few times so far, as Kurt likes to sit deep in those third man positions, likes to really just sit by that back post and wait for his opportunity to shine as the grey man piles on some pressure.
Good save. Fortunately, gifted too easily here, and it should be Steve's attempt here. More to the angle onto the ball. It should have been a shot on target. Mind you, still pressure above the head of Steve, so Navy should be looking at this as a full chance to reset, and the element of boost here should be consideration, a priority, and they haven't actually. Essentially, it's a lack of urgency, a lack of sort of pace into the game that you just almost willing both sides that would go for it a bit more.
Oh, it's a lovely little setup through the infield, and it's just caught that one space that you don't want the ball to hit. It's that naughty little curve by the front post. Sometimes it can ping straight up, sometimes it'll just sit across. Oh, nightmare.
Fortunate as it is, sometimes you just gotta look top left. Just as obviously it gets and flashes on your screen. But have to give credit here to what essentially the Shadows has been able to produce. Just settled down quite nicely. Kurt, mind you, jumped over the ball here, and you know, how can you sit there and say, you know, you may not get this reference since you're not a darts fan at all, but Wayne Mardale was doing a coaching session live on stream and talking about proper follow through. Seems like football as well, so you just want to put your boot right through it. And the players at the moment have a bit of sort of a jankiness to the motion, and it's somewhat not giving them the right delivery that you want for a big hoof downfield here.
Oh, and I'm going to try not to continue that line of conversation with follow-throughs, Danny, as I've got very little to input to the conversation, quite frankly, as at the moment...
We like some clips from last night, Benny Chance.
Downfield. Oh, goodness me.
Oh, I took a book from a play from Bomber and just blasted it and hit your teammate.
Runes then with a hoof over to the backboard. It's a miss from LW. And it affords a glimmer of hope of an opportunity for the Serpents. And what you'll notice about this team is they are just so naturally aggressive with how they want to play the game, especially the likes of Galaxy Reaver and Bomber. That sort of duo, they just love throwing themselves at the play. And for a team that likes to absorb the pressure, such as Shadows, it's almost like a dynamic similar to yesterday's finals in some ways.
Certainly is. You know what? There's sometimes you gotta look at and gotta learn from the best inability to use this one here. But as the second game runs on by here, you know, you can't sit there and not blame the RAF being the favourites in this particular matchup, because you know if they are trying to do essentially a miracle run, it has to start from somewhere. But it is a slow start as they get a cheeky goal sent right back against them.
Bomber, that is fantastic. How have you generated that much power? By just parking in a parking lot, I will not know, but that is a fabulous touch.
I don't want to know how you parked your car, so.
Well, you ever been in a tricky spot on a hill where you forgot to put on your handbrake?
No.
Well, might be telling of the quality of the vehicles that I've been owning recently. I think anyone in the BFBS esports team knows that my poor Nissan Micra that I once had, quite the machine, moved on to a Hyundai. Pretty much the same story, but the story of this series continuing in the favour of the Shadows, and it's a positive start. And as we have Bomber Brown's brother in the chat, of course, this isn't the Bomber Brown that we've come to know and love within the F1 circuit. It's quality on the pitch that runs in the family, Danny.
Yeah, it certainly is. And, you know, it's always nice when you sort of sit there and see the element of, you know, the players, the families, and everybody getting together. And, you know, the fact, you know, you can sit there and, you know, talk about, you know, relationships and what they can do. But how long of a story do you want here? Because I'm pretty sure there's a few others in as well, the likes of Action and Reedy of the Storm Shadows also has a fair few. So you know, it's always interesting because I've been DM'd at least twice when they've actually tuned into the broadcast. I think Jeromus as well too. I'm trying to think of who else off the top of my head quite recently here.
Yeah, there's so much history that is just almost impossible to pack in such a short length of time as these broadcasts, Danny. As there's just been a couple
there was a podcast.
There is a podcast, quite frankly. There is a sneaky something called The Lobby. If you're not familiar, I do suggest you go and give it a look. up on where you find your podcast, whether that's bfbs.com itself, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you might want to have a look. Myself, Jonah Jupp, and Lena, and also Danny G, hosting a little chat about esports. So if you want to have a look, I highly suggest it. But we've just had a quick lobby restart because the RF Shadows, I believe, falling victims to some internet problems. So we're just restarting the server to make everything nice and sharp for everyone.
Certainly is, and the full crew over BFBS, you can't speak highly of it, but I just want to mention, Danny G, just listen to her, just through, I listen to through, of course, Spotify, and as a professional, as a just as a host and everything else, you couldn't get anybody better in terms of the industry. She does a fantastic job just listening, so it's worth just tuning in. And I'm not just saying it as a commentator here, but I hope everybody at least tunes into it, because it was there was an interesting podcast, so with a challenge of Charlie songs here thrown to a certain psycho, and I'm still waiting to hear one song being dropped on the broadcast, or the other upper what was the other ones that you mentioned as well too? But oh yeah, you didn't want to mention that one, you did on the other broadcast.
So yeah, I was set a challenge to sneak in some quotes from Charlie XCX by our wonderful League of Legends commentator Middlecott. Needless to say, I don't know any, so that was quite the stump. Then they suggested Lord of the Rings, of which I have watched, but I've got to say, Danny, I'm not a key sort of fan of the series, so I don't really know any there either.
So you had 2 weeks essentially since that, when it went published, never mind when it was recorded here, to at least study up 1 or 2 here.
I mean, quite frankly, Danny, my brain is an enigma. Nobody knows what information flows through it, but Lord of the Rings quotes have seemingly been and gone.
That's just poor to sit there and say that you haven't bothered and moved across here, and yet there was at least 2 or 3 quotes of Lord of the Rings, and not once was it being spotted up here. I'm not going to say which commentator done that particular evening here, but what is certainly was quite good, especially about those podcasts, and potentially quite a few more, is we do hear the players' side of things as well too, the history and everything else. So what is a part of BFBS? I mean, we could sit here and talk about the F1 side of things. I mean, you alluded to the facts of Runes and Bomber, about essentially their first season, the championship wrapped up as well too, but League of Legends as well has their playoffs coming up shortly too here.
Definitely so. And I'm just going to double check that all teams are ready to go. I think it's a full-on restart for one of the players, is it not, Danny?
It's a full restart as well, and I believe they had a communication issue in terms of their particular provider of comms went down. So a bit hard to give it your best here when you can't hear your teammates, although maybe for the best here. There's some famous professional players like a Scrub Killer during the grid back when he was returning to the compass scene. Left it mid-broadcast and went over to a former professional commentator live on stream.
That is a real throwback, Danny. I myself, I do like to be able to hear my teammates. I think it's a crucial part of the game, personally. But some people like to have a bit of a laugh with it, as I've just had words that I think people good to go. And yes, for the people wandering inside the lobby, Tangerine is, of course, our wonderful producer, broadcaster, observer. All things that you see in relation to this broadcast are courtesy of his hard work. So a giant thanks to Tangerine, and also to Jonah, who has helped to produce some of the broadcasts that you've seen across time as well. Hazza, more recently as well, has stepped into some of the production here for the Rocket League as well. Danny, it's a mammoth effort behind the scenes to make this all happen.
It certainly is. I'm going to embarrass somebody as well this evening to Pegasus, a fellow commentator who is doing an examination, who may have been on this evening, but unfortunately had the priorities as exams, like many others as well. So I hope it went quite well for yourself, Pig. But it's just funny how some things you just cannot avoid, and examinations are just one of them.
Yeah, definitely. And I think there's so many service obligations and other sort of extenuating circumstances, which hits everybody involved in these competitions. It is quite simply unavoidable, as the name implies. But these teams, what is so impressive to me is their resilience to put their best foot forward, to always give everything. Even if time is not a precious commodity, we're still seeing people compete week in, week out, and doing what they enjoy.
Certainly, and it's that ability to have something to look forward to as well. And BFBS for many has been, and I've heard it quite literally through players, quite literally doing that moment as well. I'm just also was reading the chat here while we've been going on here, waiting for the players to back. And I'm not going to name names here, but only realised who I was within the in the lobby. I'm a wee bit disappointed here.
Who? What's disappointing you here, Danny?
Well, the fact that he didn't know who it was.
I've known the man.
I've known the man for about 4 or 5 years, and I was also there first for a bit of fact as well. And I'll give the game slightly away here. The RAF done the Royalty Cup, or the Royalty Cup, well, way you want to put it, which was there the way they introduced civilians to it. And hence quite literally joined in as a substitute for one of the team here, the individual who will rename nameless here. I teamed with him in week 1 in the first ever match live on broadcast too.
It's interesting to say the least, and it reminds me of a certain instant between UVG's wonderful Silver Selfie pack and Eddie from UVG as well. There was sort of a comment pass and go saying, "Oh, Ray?" And Eddie said, "What? I don't know Ray." Turns out they've been calling each other exclusively by their in-game names for the past 3 or 4 years. Had absolutely no idea who they were referring to, even though they knew each other for years. So it does happen all the time, Daddy. I'm sure you'll forgive him one day.
I don't forgive quite easily, as some people may have learnt. I hold on to things quite difficult.
Oh, okay. I like your style. Make it tricky. Make it difficult.
Yeah. The dark arts when it comes, especially on the pitch.
Yeah, the dark arts referring to a not so spoken about classic art form whereby 2 teams negotiate on the text chats a lot of the time, or whatever else, to get inside the mental of the other team. And quite frankly, I don't think we've seen as much of that this season as I expected.
I'm disappointed with that. Joe, who has been the king of the dark arts this season, and if you had to give an award to Trinity, over the RAF Night Talks, he has been a fantastic, just to nibble away at players, just to let them know that he's certainly on the pitch here, and you have to appreciate. There's players that have, and I'll use this word, aura around him. The likes of an Envy, you just know he has ability, class, it oozes out of him. But when you know Trinity's out, you know it's going to be a hard day.
Absolutely so, and well, I think a lot of calm heads, it's fair to say, on this Shadows roster. Of course, a trio that's played with each other for years at this point in time. So no strangers to working through the thick of it. As early on here, Kurt tries to chip that ball infield direct towards the target, and it's going to give a bit of leeway to the Navy here.
Certainly is, and we might as well mention the massive and most notable name change that has ever graced the BFBS. Aisha has joined us instead of Steve the Deal himself, who has subbed to the bench for the temporary game here, as they've conceded, mind you, by Runes' shot attempt.
Yeah, and it's just a little touch inside by Galaxy, and he easily could have pushed that immediately towards the target, but definitely aiming for that infield option, and well, the space was there for the taking.
Certainly is. I normally don't talk about decals, but Aisha's car is arguably the most colourful decal I've seen in a long time.
I've just panned on over to it, and you know what? I think you're right.
I wouldn't mind it if you have the misfortune of queuing against me. I literally have no decal, one blob of a colour, and that's it. Black wheels as well.
Well, if we're speaking car designs, Daddy, I have to give a massive set of... Well, I'll hold off for a second because Kurt has actually just scored something delightful here. He's tipped this ball up very nicely for the air dribble and squeezed that within the top right. Quite an unexpected shot, but on his team as well, LW paying homage to the wonderful side swipe professional Matty Moo going back to the days when you used to commentate that very esport with his little cow topper. That is an incredible piece of artwork.
Oh, that was what, give or take, around 2020 at Christmas time. That's how far back when it was near the holidays as well. And let's not forget as well, Matty Moon, it was a decent enough bubble player, or at least within the circuit too.
Absolutely.
And never got the respect, at least in my eyes. Produced some decent results here and thereabouts, but the fact that he played sideswipe as well, I bursted out laughing when I saw his name because I did not believe it at first.
Yeah, I believe. Oh, I'm trying to remember what university he played for back in the day, but that's a lovely tip off of infield to the man with the little cow topper. And LW with 100 boost in the tank has just eaten that pass up.
Certainly they have. It's just funny how the old history book has been winded right back across here. But what certainly will be at least a focal point is, the Royal Navy has, led at the part of the game here, hasn't seemed to get themselves back onto it, but you have to give credit Runes with the demo attempt to get out of danger here.
Runes does well to stuff that ball against the wall and keep that possession, but it's a great cut by Asher, who's just injected a bit of pace into this game. And I think the Serpents have to be a little fearful of that one as Bomber, not quite with the touch he wants, but he's got some freedom here.
That's exactly what you do need. A little bit of space and a bit of love and tender with the ball here to make something magical happen. And, the closest to sort of near missed the pad here is essentially was the pre-jump miss here.
Absolutely so. And the RAF Shadows, it could have been a little more in terms of the goals they've put on for this game 3. And it is looking convincing as these seconds tick on down. Kurt for one final punishment towards the Serpent's net. And surely that's going to solidify Shadows with a victory here in the first series of the day.
That may just, and it'll be a nice sweep as well, especially for the side that is just outside the top 8. But you have to give credit here. The Royal Navy Serpents has made a match for them. It wasn't a case of walking into the park here, but give or take 70 seconds here. If they find one goal, we might just be bracing ourselves.
A read from Asher to come through, and Bomber with a 50-50 to play. Ooh, Asher's strangely decided to push that ball back to his defensive third. W dancing around those defenders, but nice cutaway there by Galaxy.
Well, just enough to get something going here as Logan, an air dribble, not happening. It's essentially lash and leash at the same time here as Kurt Pop moves across, and it's nice to see it's refreshing for a third man just to drop back in a form of action. Didn't decide to gamble and push all in here.
Smart positioning from the Shadows just to keep the scoreline at bay. And by the same token, they're not afraid to unleash when given the opportunity. Kurt found himself a lovely dunk.
He just wanted something, and it's nice to see it eventually paid dividends for them. And you know what here, I'm a tad bit confused here as why they swapped Steve out. It's nice to have Asher onto the pitch here, but unless you're playing with that roster for the rest of the evening, it doesn't make too much sense to me here.
Not, but I think the Shadows sort of have a slightly different approach to some teams in that they're very happy to, chop and change, give someone the pitch time that they might rightfully think they deserve by, very virtue of being together. As Runes does sneak in a second goal, and I have to give full credit to the Serpents who, in all fairness to them, Danny, have improved week after week after week, and I remember looking at them in that first community qualifier, and they have come leaps and bounds since then.
Certainly have, and you can't sit there and disagree with that. And that's sort of what the point of it as well. When you play that many sort of games consistently, the level should go up as well as your sort of floor. And the Royal Navy, they're going to be a side here, in about a year's time when BFBS Season 3 comes about. I'm presuming here this Season 3. I don't want to give any spoilers away, but you just know they're going to be a tricky side to break into a top 8 conversation because they're there. It's just somewhat a gatekeeper. Perhaps, maybe, there might be a bit more than that for the future, though.
Definitely so, and we've got some breaking news, Danny.
Ooh, tell me more.
We've got some scores on the boards here, outside of the match that we've just bared witness to. So RAF Storm Shadows, taking a sweep on the RAF Harriers, Mustangs taking a sweep on the Sparrowhawks, and Kestrels taking a sweep on the Tornadoes. So it sweeps all around across the first 4 game results that we've had through so far. And I'll be honest, Danny, I don't think it's entirely unexpected here for round 1, but a good opportunity for the teams to warm up a bit.
Well, certainly is here, and I might as well throw this as well too before we talk even further. Have you worked out which university it was, by the way?
I thought it was Kent.
It was Kent.
It was Kent. Do I get 10 points? I better get 10 points.
You get 15 points, but with 3 extra questions, which is what's happening after this break.
Well, after this break, of course, we've got round 2 of this community qualifier. 3 games in total for this evening, so nearing the halfway stage. And we'll get that match up after this short break. See you then.
Mate, you're lagging. What are you doing?
Good enough can cost you the game, so stop settling. Wifinity is built for real life on base, so you can game without compromise. Hosted somewhere new? Take your Wi-Fi with you, no hassle. Get fast, reliable Wi-Fi with Wifinity. Use code BFBS50 to get 50% off the first 3 months.
Hey yo, 6-0.
Welcome back, everybody, to the BFBS Pro League Community Qualifier number 4. You join myself and Danny Boy as we enter the second round of the group stage. And, well, the series just gone by. We watched the Royal Navy Serpents lose out to the RAF Shadows. And we're watching that very legacy team up here in round 2, Danny.
Well, it certainly is. It's almost an RAF sort of show match once again here with literally mentioned them and mentioned the likes of the Harriers, and suddenly now, the race essentially for the top 8, we have discussed the importance of it and the fact that there has to be a head-to-head at some point, and here we are this evening already at that stage.
So the RAF Shadows and the RAF Harriers then, within Group A, are going to be duking it out to try and seek that advantage when it comes to the seeding department ahead of Swiss, but also to give themselves some experience before they go into that Swiss stage, if indeed they do clash heads again. We sort of alluded to it in the previous series, Danny. The Shadows roster unavailability has really, really hurt them so far this season. So they have missed out on gaining a couple of points here or there, and arguably could be positioned higher up in the point standings if everything was to have gone their way this season. But nonetheless, the Harriers are the hopefuls. Leading the charge is Charlie Sierra, captaining that particular team. are Youngie and Spen joining him for tonight.
Certainly. They'll be looking forward to a massive chance this evening here, especially with, as you describe it, a legacy lineup. But the question really at that point there is, what they're going to be able to produce in these vital moments. And for quite literally here, Psycho, I would suggest here that the Harriers must look at this matchup as essentially a free bite at the apple here.
It's a great opportunity for both sides. And this could well be one of the last times we get to witness both of these teams on stream until we go again for what is to come in future, Daddy. And I'll leave that air of suspense for next time.
That bombshell. Good night.
Hold on, we can't throw to the credits. We've just got started. Come on,
well,
man.
I don't know, but I've got my A-level results in this cracking big farm here, so I don't know what you're complaining about.
Can't believe we've thrown in Jeremy Clarkson references. Come on, not even halfway through the broadcast here.
Well, you're telling me you
Sure,
don't
there's gonna
want
be more.
bar? Why couldn't
Power,
Logan put
speed,
that
and
in?
agility.
Well,
Oh,
certainly
that would be
Robot
good
Wars by
timing.
that point.
Yeah, maybe we'll involve that as part of the BFBS Open series, who knows? Danny, of course, a massive fan of Robot Wars, so there you go. There's a fact that you didn't know before today, as Asher is what looks to be in a GMC. What is that? Is that a Dodge?
A mistake.
I've never seen that car in my life.
Good reason. It's hideous to look at. It's worse than the Scarab.
He has opted for green and pink, which is actually a combination I think I wore to one of the RLCS events just to make sure that I was visible back in the day, which is one of the saddest statements you'll hear today, is that ball just clashes against the post.
Sorry, hold on here. Why did you need to be visible?
Well, I found it quite difficult in finding people I was trying to spot, so I just thought, let's go for the most garish colours imaginable. As that shot rips towards target from Spen. And this RAF Harriers roster has been chopping and changing over the weeks, with varying new players entering the field. And we're sort of having a throwback to what was delivered in Community Qualifier 1 from the Harriers lineup. This was the original before the introduction of Prof, who myself and you, Danny, will be very familiar with through the likes of the RAF six-mans and all of the community bits he's been engaged with in past.
I was wondering when Prop was going to be mentioned there, funny enough, and there it was here. And it's you have to give full credit here to the likes of Stelios, Cedric and G Wood, all the major staff there. As I said, part of that old guard here of the RAF community with the flip reset goal here. Is how much talent has came on in.
Gorgeous flip reset, isn't it? And the defense left scrambling, trying to time their challenge right. And I think anyone who's a fond player of this game knows just quite how difficult it is when you're stuck in defense, back to the wall almost, to make that last second decision. And Asher's played it perfectly.
Oh, this is even better though.
Just took a quick technical pause there. I wasn't quite sure if my eyes deceived me or not. But Connor graced the pitch, otherwise known as Charlie Sierra. And he can be really tricky because he likes to take control of the play. He's not particularly one for a giant hoof downfield, but he's got his wits about them as Spen is actually going to establish a lead here.
I think if you asked me coming into this matchup, if you said the RAF Harriers will have some form of a lead, I would have sat there and scoffed at the idea. The Shadows on paper, with all the experience, should be dominating at least a fair portion of possession and the field. But here we are. Wrong with that thought. See how the RAF Harriers proven there's a fair few of the doubters wrong this evening.
Asher has a chance to sift the ball infield, and Kurt just reversing from the midfield line to try and backtrack and make that play work. It was a desperate attempt as LW's going to stretch thin for that glancing touch. There goes 2 defenders. Connor, can you get back in time? Yes, you can.
Just appreciating the rubber ducky, by the way.
Where's the duck?
Kirk's car and then they cannot.
Oh, yes. Lovely, lovely bit of style. And in fact, what he's doing is paying homage to the profile picture of Asher, of course, the blue octane. Albeit without the Club Penguin penguin. That's a lovely shot from our youngie.
Are you that young to know what Club Penguin is?
No comment. See, I choose to tactically ignore that question.
That's okay.
As you question your own age. I know it's not particularly a sensitive question. I'm sorry, Daddy. I probably could have been a bit more straight with you there.
No. It makes it nice for the change of dynamic. It's usually me that's being the stubborn one. But what is certainly the the joys of it is that, you know, I've actually never played that game.
Well, that makes 2 of us. That ball not quite rolling in. And, yeah, I don't remember much from it, I'll be honest. And I think there's going to be a lot of people who are just hammering on that we should know better. But quite frankly, I think the Shadows need to be known a bit better than to play with their food in their own defence at the moment.
Certainly so, and if you're of my generation, it was probably Mamzuki was probably more of the game of the choice at the time. Especially when you're growing up here, but that's a different era. And certainly the crossbar doesn't matter whether it was in the past or the present. Has denied many great players of goal-scoring opportunities. Once again, RAF Shadows have been denied of that chance.
Demos at the back from Kurt to open things up a little bit, but LW's kept that ball close and unfortunately baited in the defender, and the defenders won the war.
Surely it's a battle, not a war at the moment.
This individual game a battle, but it could jolly well turn into a war on the pitch. So we're seeing the demos, we're seeing the disruption from the Shadows lineup. Our youngie is going to tee this ball high. He's done very well, can't quite find the touch there. LW for the redirect. Bound towards the backboard, but Asher's made a meal of that one. And it's straight towards the corner.
That's tipped horrible and ugly. And Kirk will profit from it just as nicely. It gets these chances here. 9 seconds to find this game tied back up.
Oh, Connor, so close to being able to push that ball aside and just forget about the potential for an equalising goal.
Forget about it. It's nearly at the cusp here. And once again, Connor with a snapshot save. Keeping it away here, and unfortunately Logan's not able to do much more than keep it up, and that's a massive bump.
Oh, Daddy, I could tell that you didn't think that ball was staying up much longer.
I was really hoping for the demo to come on through. That would have been a proper, shall we say, let's say part of the dark arts here, just enough to put the boot in to remind them you're not getting this one.
Oh, I just love how you ended it saying LW unfortunately has kept the ball up, and then suddenly there's a great shooting chance and it could have been overtime. Oh, I'm sorry to put you on blast like that. RF Shadows. Ultimately, we didn't see that spark from them that we usually do. The defensive integrity, I think, slightly at question at parts. And for a team that likes to play from the back, they're going to be having some serious questions.
I think it's somewhat of an attitude game, really. The RAF Shadows is approaching it, not necessarily with a lack of care, but sort of a lack of respect, really, from the Harriers' point of view, where they've essentially been allowed and afforded to have chance after chance after chance, where the Harriers on the other side of the coin is just looking at it and sort of going, well, give us the ball here, and we don't really care. And it's playing with that freedom that's allowed them to essentially sneak away with the opening of this game here.
Asher, no contact on the touch towards goal. Just got him with one little tip up high, and you can see him just aiming straight towards what was, for a small period of time, an open net as Asher Played that ball around. Not sure if it was an intentional choice, but nonetheless, the grey man with a flip reset still in hand couldn't quite poke that one towards target.
Not able to get the last bit of the product onto it. Could be whipped aside here. Fortunately, it's the shoelace-like attack there. Crisscrossed each other and tripped up the eventual play. Fortunately here, the RAF hires, they do well enough to at least deal with the pressure. It's almost like a sort of a fire blanket. They throw in enough here to quench the flame, but not necessarily the smouldering that's coming after it.
I think at the moment, all opportunity for the Shadows seemingly extinguished on the field as Spent is going to snake to and fro in that infield and try to get that defense to double think and just make them question whether or not it's the right time to make that challenge, make that move at the back.
Demo. Steve, of course, that tape. Demo. He'll lay a bit of that space in that back line, not happening. The Harriers deny and deny and deny consistently well here. Steve's up, blocked by Connor. What also needs to be pointed out here is that Kirk, for the first time this evening, not on the pitch here.
Right, and it is that sort of dynamic of change that the Shadows at this point are all so used to. Even if us in the commentary booth have expected something different, they always deliver on quality regardless of who graces the pitch.
Well, luckily for you, you are in the commentary booth.
It's a very good point. It's almost as if I've got my own internal monologue going on. And all you
Why did I
poor
invite
souls
Danny
have to
back
listen.
on? Or was that the
When
other
will it
voice
end?
talking?
Oh, we don't talk about those voices, our youngie. With something in the back of his head screaming, you gotta get that touch. Else you're in trouble. Connor's actually bumped Greyman back towards net. And if Greyman managed to establish that save, that really would have been a miracle. He's been yeeted downfield from the halfway point and can't quite get enough sauce on that touch.
Do love how the Harriers was like pincer-like movement. There was an option in the middle, Connor to the left of, but there was no space to move for Steve. He was going to either be bumped or blown out of smithereens there, and that's a decent attempt at the save. Not, however, picked out the rafters of the net, though.
Definitely the playmaker for the Shadows right now, as we come to expect from the likes of Asher. Oh, and I've just seen on the back lines, I think it was just a missed jump in terms of, when the curve of that wall just eats it up and you're just left flailing for hope.
It's always tricky. Sometimes that curvature up the wall. You either get it or you don't, and that's a good response right back from the consistent.
LW in fields, you can see what he's aiming for here, but ultimately he's given it away. And given the Harriers another sniff at a series which they're coming into this as underdogs. I think historically you could argue it was sort of teeter in the balance of going either direction, but the Shadows roster on paper, in terms of the RAF points of view, higher in the rankings internally.
So it's funny how you can sort of sit there and look at it, because you can sit there and base it on the RAF's internal structure, the inter-service structure, or the BFBS current points. They're sitting 11th jointly so far, just outside that cusp of a top 8. And you just sit there and look at it, you sort of going out, how much is it to separate between the two?
Well, it's barely anything, is it? And it is sort of the battle for the top 8 at the moment. As our youngie over to the backboard, loops that one over. It's a great demo from LW. And he's continued the chase downfield. 100 boost nabbed in the corner by LC Spend just to keep himself afloat.
Decent poke. Fortunately not able to get firm connection. He backs away from it, and as much as I don't mind a bit of blur here, he did need to spiral himself and had a dainty little touch there. Could have just went up and dropped it nicely.
Well, LW's got something to say about that. Get rid of the flare, just get the ball downfield as that ball sent towards the corner. And that one straight up off the ceiling as well. It's dynamics favouring the Shadows at the moment. The calamity of these touches.
You really can tell the difference between Seiko as I have philosophy to the game here. Control, soft touches, yeah, or just smack it as hard as you can. And you know what? The answer is probably somewhere in the middle. But for the Shadows' point, it's a brooch needed goal to break that deadlock, but you just have to sense that the RAF Harriers should get a chance back. Not today, though.
That is a double commit of dreams for the Shadows. They just smothered the ball. There is no direction the defender can go, and I've got to give credit, a wonderful follow-up shot.
Would they be able to do it again if you give this sort of 10 balls? How many can you put in from that scenario?
No, in the Shadows, it'd be 10 out of 10.
Probably could. Probably might end up being another goal that we'll see from them. And Connor not getting the final touch into the box here, and the problem for the RAF Harriers, you know, they're still playing a bit conservative, essentially dropping back, trying to get the position here. At this point in time here, you've just got to send it.
Oh, I thought maybe our youngie actually had a flip reset off of that bump, and he would have been unlucky if he didn't get one. I thought there might be a chance to do something a bit crazy. But we're back to normality, LW in the box. As these last 10 seconds of the match tick down, we are, of course, going to be progressing through to one apiece in series. RF Shadows, definitely more shots on the board for them. 10 to their name this time around, and a very different story in terms of the approach. Very much more happy to lob themselves downfield, get those demos, establish that aggression early on.
Well, certainly, and the fact that they had that sort of roster change, you know, just sat there and just shows you perhaps maybe the move was to take Kirk off the pitch temporarily. While that's going to be in Game 3, we don't know, but I'll throw this in terms of a bit of a puzzle piece for you in terms of how to consider things at the moment. At show match, the RAF Harriers didn't take a game off the Mustangs, who are lower down in terms of the RAF standings, much higher in BFBS. So how do you judge the Shadows in terms of this now?
For me, the Shadows, I think if I had to look at all of the teams that they're bringing together on paper, I'd put them above the Harriers. I really would. And I think quite significantly, just on paper. The Mustangs, I think, are in a league of their own at the moment. So I think the Mustangs definitely have an advantage against the Shadows. And historically, across the BFBS competitions, at least, the Mustangs have proven so much quality to be able to contend with the top 8. The Shadows, for me, are just that little baby step underneath where they need to be in order to get there. And I think just one day where everything just clicks for them, you never know, they might find themselves in a scenario like that.
That's the conundrum at that point there. What sort of moment or time will you get or find it? And that's a good shot here by the man himself here. Taps on home for a 1-0 lead.
And I'll be honest, I blinked and I missed it. It's over to the crossbar. And the grey man has dove very optimistically at that ball, but he knows the defence are in a pickle, and he's taken the advantage.
Well, I mean, why aren't you sort of diving that situation here? I know your teammates haven't recovered, but, you know, as you said, the defence wasn't there, and if Kirk got that, it probably would have been goal up the series.
I'll be honest, Kurt needed to score that. That was a must-score goal. What is going on? Grey man has scored again. And the Harriers have just lobbed this ball towards their own back post. Connor's dribbled across the post himself as well, and everything's been hit by the post apart from the ball. That's a goal.
You want to try that one again?
I'm quite happy with that delivery, actually.
Oh, I thought you were. Was dribbly, patchy, and every sort of bit of sputtering. That's 3 descriptive words that you can essentially describe the defence. Well, unfortunately, it's had a feedback for. It needs to be a response to the left by the Harriers.
Also 3 words to describe why not to buy a turbo diesel. As the grey man, beaten by our youngie, and Asher very quick to dash across to the left-hand side. And this midfield battle, well, actually in favour of Harriers for the time being, courtesy of that lovely pinch with the back of Spen's car. but I'm just keeping my eyes on that third man at the moment for Harriers, because so often is it happened to make that last desperate attempt to cross. They've lost a bit of that solidity.
Perhaps maybe they might want to use a bit of petrol. Get a bit of gas behind them and move and shift around as much as you can here. And that's a nice set of ideas here, but it won't go. And you know what? You have to give credit here to Spleen for whatever attempt that he does get onto it. It's, 50% of the time you just sit there and say it may just go in, and it's good enough here to cause doubts.
Lovely lift up high. Asher to the corner. With a pinch that does not quite go his way, and Cart's going to be playing chase on that third man, who quite frankly isn't there. It was a bump attempt on somebody yet to rotate back, and the Harriers so empty at the back.
It's nearly been forced in. He just sits there and pushes that one. Free shot for Steve, and he's lashed at it. He'd have been at least directed on target to get something from it. Connor, not beaten, has actually got the ball here, but I think that's more due to the fact Asher just thinks that it's safer to be left there.
Tested by Kurt. No contact found, as the dunk was the opportunity to reach for. Youngie softly puts that ball in the midfield. Opts not to go for the bump downfield. I think it's moments like those where the Harriers just have to put pedal to the metal and go for it. Go all in, Danny.
Even the kitchen sink at this point.
I'll throw that in for good measure.
What if you don't have a sink anymore because somebody else threw it?
I think there's been many a kitchen sink thrown across the duration of this Pro League season. I wonder if there's some sort of a tracker as to how many times we've used that phrase.
Well, at least twice.
I'm going to go with 4 times. That's my bet. I bet there's actually, you know what? We can grab an actual statistic for that, Danny. We can generate some transcripts from the back of this, but I think for both of our sanity, we should choose not to, as Kurt.
No, I want the porcelain company to send an invoice in.
Well, I'll tell you one thing that is absolutely certain to not have any sort of leaks, and that is... What did you think I was going to say, Danny? You got very defensive there.
Oh, not this colander being brought back from yesterday again.
Oh, I should have said that, but I wasn't. I was just going to credit the Harriers actually on their performance downfield, but trust you to mention the colander.
Oh, it's part of BFBS folklore now. It's not going to be not mentioned, as that one has a few holes in the defence, as you were mentioning.
It's an infield ball from our youngie to Asher, realistically. Harriers have given that ball away. So they reset 2 goals down now. Of course, best of 5 is the length of this particular series. So if it doesn't go the Harriers' way, they've got some time, crucially, to shape up. That's a wonderful slice of a finish towards the left by Greyman.
So it really count as a slice at 103.
I mean, I think a slice, no matter how you cut it. If it's on target, you might as well take it, Danny.
Go on, I want to try to cut the cake with a chainsaw, and I'll let you know when I get the findings back then.
Not sure how this supports the hypothesis for such an experienced scientist as yourself.
I'm trying to work out, does speed matter then on how to slice?
All questions remain to be seen, and that's one that's not going to be revealed at the Pro League Grand Finals at London in Hendon on the 27th of September. There might be a guest appearance by the colander when it comes to the staging of the analyst studio. We'll have to wait and see, as that backboard touch from Asher doesn't quite find its way on target. And Harriers, with 12 seconds left, are just looking for some sort of a consolation, and that could well just be confidence, which I believe they've been sorely lacking in Game 3. Spent to tip that ball away. Maybe just one last game for the Shadows to push themselves through.
Potentially so, and if you bring a permanent marker in your own colander, you can get it signed by every member, of course, of the BFBS staff too at the LAN, just in case you may be interested. But those chances that you have sat there and seen and talked about I think that's unfortunately the difference between the two sides here. The RAF Shadows have been far too often in these matches here to let these ones slip away from their fingertips now.
Absolutely, and I might as well update some of the ongoing results as well from across the remainder of the group stage. Storm Shadows 3, Serpents 0. The Serpents, of course, we watched in the previous series, and the Storm Shadows continuing their reign of superiority, albeit with a substitute in Stelios at the moment. RF Mustangs 3 to RF Tornadoes 0, and the Kestrels 3-0ing the Sparrowhawks. And that is the remainder of the games played out, and it seems we've chosen wisely here, Danny.
It's about time. We always seem to find that's our awkward spot here.
Oh, I won't take that with any bit of offence as that ball in field towards Kurt.
Oh, the League of Legends crew has got a term for this. It's the bonus game.
I'll have you know, I'm a huge fan of the BFBS bonus game. And, it provided all the drama for this week if you caught it.
Oh, certainly did caught up. I'm just wondering if you go higher or lower, do we get a few cards to pick from here?
I think if you ask me to predict anything, it's going the other way. And that's not just a caster curse, that's a product of my own stupidity. That's a lovely infield ball towards LW. And again, I'm just having my eye towards that third man, rotating back a little too late. And our Youngie desperate to cling on to that touch.
Certainly so, and I'm afraid the Psycho doesn't know the classic from a bit of Bruce Forsyth there. You know, don't want to play your cards right. It's unfortunately not a part of the lexicon, as Steve, however, doesn't understand how not to score this evening here.
2-0 to a very eager Shadows roster. And now it's just a question almost of how many are they going to put towards the nets. For me, Harriers haven't had a response.
Certainly is. I mean, he's just sitting here looking at the chance here, and you know, all these sort of opportunities here. It's just, you know, eventually one will step on through here, but the problem is that you have this element of the RAF Harriers don't have enough to get yourself back into the series here.
Brilliant pass up from Connor. Just picked the spot on the backboard, which was so woefully difficult to read for the defense. It's well reacted to by Spen, who had a difficult angle of his own to work with, and it's that sort of forward thinking that the Harriers in desperate need of at the moment, as they've suffered a drought up until that very point.
Hey, get to a stage here, you'll be hoping for a bit of horning from the Weller here. The left side attempt here, not necessarily getting on target. A bit misty. It's Kirk trying to get this one through it here, and it's essentially this corner favoured by both sides here, and the RAF Shadows has done the smartest thing so far of that defensive play, sewed it right down here until that sort of double man challenge by Kirk. Unfortunately, undone everything they were trying to achieve there.
LW backwards in the corner, and he's rolled that ball around perfectly. Kurt is going to be called into question here. Almost beaten by that Harriers member in Youngie. Pushes the ball towards that front post, and you can see the Shadows all gravitating towards the corner here. And it's going to be a little bit dangerous for future, potentially, if the Harriers can get to grips with this.
Any chances there? The claw in that corner.
Why would there be a Toy Story reference over there, Danny?
Well, I don't know. Everybody else seemed to be enjoying it quite a lot over there.
Well, maybe so. All three of the small alien toys in this analogy rushing towards the claw of the corner. That's probably the weirdest analogy you'll get today. It's the Grey Man, eager to put in a second.
Well, if that's the oddest analogy, we've done a fantastic job here. Fortunately, the defence will not be looking to get that one back towards it. Half the game still left here. All what the Shadows have to do is to play boom ball for the next minute and a half here.
Our Youngie has let the ball slip in field. Connor's there. Push the ball forwards only into the path of the Grey Man, who's controlling that midfield line superbly. It's a lovely challenge by Connor, though, and our Youngie just needs to find the underside of that Fennec and strikes that in the heart.
And just straight when you have those sort of chances, you've got to take them. And it's quite easy to hit the crossbar when you just want to play it apart. Gentle time and no defense here. All the rest being exactly what you wanted. And every time I seem to be ruling the RAF Harriers out, they keep coming back here.
Thorn in the side. There is time on the clock, isn't there? There is something to work with for Spen, who lingers that ball above the crossbar. And it's oh so close to a brilliant equalising goal as that ball's missed. Infield touch toward Kurt, and the response firmly packaged, parcelled, and delivered for the Shadows.
How many times is that ball going to run right across the net there to be tapped on home? The Shadows here, arguably, and should have been finding themselves in a 3-3 game and trying to break that deadlock, but they've got away with it. Not once, but twice. A shot on target here by Spleen would be ideal, but trying to take it slow, exactly perfect for Connor. Unfortunately, not the connection to the ball here.
Our Youngie then downfield, hopeful of another chance presenting itself, but just beaten to the punch by LW. And Kurt with so much time and space to work with here, demoed away for his troubles. That's a great play by Logan infield, and the dunk off the crossbar too. When will the chaos stop?
Never.
We're built in the chaos, Daddy. That's what we're used to on the field. LW touches that ball to the right. And a little bit of wits about our Youngie just to slow the ball down there. They go for a bit of a friendly hug, dare I say?
Sorry, what's friendly about that?
Look, sometimes you have the hug of solidarity, of which is a bit more aggressive and purposeful. I don't know, I'm making stuff up. I'm following the analogy. Let me off on the hook, Danny.
You know I don't do hugging.
I wouldn't know, quite frankly. I know you've told me before. Is that ball infield? It's the post. It's a demo on the 6-yard box. And you know what? I've just caught something quite wonderful. A massive thank you to RSC SSA for the raid. I hope your stream's gone very well. You're watching teams from the UK Armed Forces world duke it out. We've got the RAF Shadows and the RAF Harriers on display right now, but tri-service teams gathered from all around for tonight's affairs. And of course, this is part of the wider BFBS Pro League itself. We're deep into the campaign. One event left to play of points gathering before our LAN finals in London towards the end of September. But GG's across the board, of course, to the Shadows, who I think we predicted we're going to push through that series, Danny, but the Harriers did not make it easy.
No, they didn't, and there was that element that we've seen it somewhat a week ago with the RAF Mustangs, with that so much on their particular channel. They came about and done it quite well here. But again, we talk about experience being such a huge difference here. The RAF Shadows, arguably within the top 5 most experienced team within the competition, proven why you need to have it on your lineup.
Definitely so. And like we said during that last game, all results already through. And that was the final series left to be played out of round number 2. Best of 5 group stage at the moment. And, well, the next matchup, I believe, already almost confirmed and good to go, Danny. But we'll leave you in a bit of suspense as we head to a short break. See you soon.
Out here, every millisecond counts. And in here, every millisecond counts too. Never let delays ruin the action. Upgrade your Wi-Fi to Wi-Finity. Use code BFBS50 to get 50% off your first 3 months.
two teams that we're very familiar with, the RAF Mustangs and the British Army Esports Kestrels, have been duking it out since the dawn of time at this point, seemingly. When we glance our head through the history books of the BFBS Pro League Season 2 so far. You join myself and Danny Boy back for round number 3. And Danny Boy, this is a matchup we've seen time and time and time again, but right now might be one of the most impactful matches that these two teams play together.
Well, to just break it down to anybody tuning in, maybe for the first time tuning into BFBS, is essentially a race of the top 8 goes to LAN. The problem is these two sides have, as you've been somewhat alluding to, has faced each other so many times. They're almost inseparable. They have been the case of tied at 16 points so far. And you know what? Some point, something has to give here. And this evening here, more than likely, both of them will go to the Swiss stage. Will they face each other? Statistics would suggest very much not. It's now which side of the bracket of that Swiss has seating, the rankings, and everything else comes into play. The game differential and who you may face here. And that becomes then potentially into a tiebreaker problem of who eventually may get into the case here. And it all starts here this evening on how that plays out.
Absolutely so. And we do have both teams ready and raring to go. Joint top 8, as you mentioned, on 16 points apiece at the moment in the standings. And in hot pursuit behind them, just in terms of the points totals, the Tridents with 12. Then there's a big gulf to the Shadows and the Harriers with 8 apiece each. But nonetheless, this is their time to sort of establish themselves really as the favourites going into next week's Swiss.
You can even sit there and say that your favourites, I mean, with how regular they've been playing back and forth and taking games off, I don't think that word really exists between these two.
Maybe not from a spectator's point of view, but you have to remember, these two teams approach with the mindset of, well, if we're winning games, we might as well win them all. Dave, with a lovely start here.
It certainly is, and it has to be also mentioned as well. Never mind just the importance of it, the volatility of it, that the RAF Mustangs is playing tonight here with a substitute, which just makes that level of complexion to the series even more difficult to wrap your head round.
Definitely so, and Padster and JDN are the two players that us in the commentary booth are so familiar with from their performances in the Pro League finals just 1 year ago. Back in the University of Staffordshire, representing the Sparrowhawks, the Falcons between them. As Padster is going to tip this ball high, manages to beat 2 with 1 foul swoop, and JDN just needs to put it towards the target. Mitch down off the crossbar, and Padster to follow through with a snappy equaliser.
Well, the fact of it, that these sort of situations may just arise as how you deal with it. And, you know, the RAF Mustangs, yesterday in the open, the open qualifier 3 in the top 8, top 6 conversation, could have went through, could have had a much more better situation, and threw matches away through simple mistakes. They've let another one in here.
Oh, I think it's harsh, because Padster has delivered a perfect ball across the width of the net. And I can't even sit there and think that was defendable. That is just a gorgeous ball.
Well, there's always going to be that sort of scenario. Is there going to be a defender? If you take them out of the game, there's nothing other than tip your hat to the striker here. But again, the RAF Mustangs find themselves within a dangerous problem.
He shot towards the target just to draw Mitch out of comfortability. There's marks at the back of that goalpost. Mitch, the newcomer, squeaks that ball towards the target. Dave, with no boost, is actually going to claim that ball. And, well, I think maybe cool void off of that one.
Perhaps. Either way, they'll be looking at this as a transitional phase of play here. Removed Dovrumus off the pitch here, tips it forward, and they'll void here that sort of uncertainty, the question marks, every bit of doubt that you may have slipped on into it. And what is the surprising bit of it is that that one goes in. And the British Army's essentially lineup here isn't even targeting them as the weak spot here.
From left to right to left again. And Padster has picked his mark expertly. There was no doubt that that shot was going straight in the beating heart of that net. As we arrive towards sort of this halfway point, that's a lovely touch from Mitch downfield as well. And there's just something about this particular British Army team at the moment which looks on fire.
You can't sit there and disagree. Every part of their play has essentially touched gold here as Padster trying to feign a bit more of it, but what is the certainty of a subtlety that they have produced. They haven't overextended, they haven't pushed up, but they were nearly caught napping there. They just need to keep this ball away from the net, and game one shall be theirs.
Again, dominance. Back to front of the field. Just one hefty launch downfield, and Mitch was pre-positioned to follow the transitional play, as you put it. At the moment, the Mustangs, they're not particularly worrying me in terms of the performance they're putting across. But maybe they should be worried about their opposition.
It almost feels like they've sort of know that they're going to be in Swiss. They don't have to do anything, and they can just essentially, how can I say, play it as a free game or a free series, which annoyingly is the wrong approach here.
I mean, the approach itself is one thing, but it's going to linger in the back of your minds no matter which way this result plays out. That's going to be what's freshest in your memory as a player. And I know it's very easy from our perspective, Danny, to sort of shrug off a cheap loss or a cheap win here or there. But to the players, that is almost an engraved mark. Sits with you for life as that ball in field. Had two blue players committing for it, and Void just trying to keep the pressure going.
But what causes the pressure being trying to essentially squeeze in the last bit of juice out of it until you get to the seeds itself here. CDN just again the right idea, Mitch to continue with the second phase of play, and once again Void, you have to give credit for the stand-in player to put those opportunities to take the ball away. He's done well. The problem is no second man to follow here.
Second man to follow in Void for the Mustangs, though, as that was realistically their last chance to have a say back into this game. There's been many a 3-goal comeback in 30 seconds to my memory in impactful games, but the likelihood is just nigh on impossible when that gap has increased.
Doesn't help when you own goal.
It certainly doesn't.
Could have placed it a bit more tighter to the post.
Criticism that the Mustangs will not want to hit, and that they could have placed their own goal a little bit neater and tidier for our liking at 6-1, and at this point, it's almost embarrassment for the Mustangs.
So where was the land that you suggest it was in England, or are you going out of field here?
Well, you see the wonderful land of which you're talking about. Of course, the BFBS Pro League Grand Finals, hosted in the RAF Museum. A wonderful legacy left by the Royal Air Force and such old wartime machinery. It is a spectacle of a place, and there's going to be a huge, huge wave of incredibly talented players from the UCAF world stepping to the pitch at that very venue on the 27th of September. It could well be one of these teams qualifying in, and this is really the de facto fight. Maybe you can argue that you'd put Kestrels in the mix as well, or rather the Krakens from the Royal Navy in the mix for that battle as well, but they have a bigger cushion to their name. These two certainly do not.
Yeah, and you just have to look at just slightly nipping under their heels, but the Royal Navy sort of Tridents as well, sitting with 12 points, only 4, which isn't really too much. And they're going to sit there and say it's, you know, they can't come back here because one bad result in the Swiss here and suddenly your performance shakes. And then if you get in that top 8, you can really do a bit of damage here if you want to get a game or a series back here. Both sides know that fair enough here. It's the RAF Mustangs, I would sit here and say, is in the worst of the four teams position here because you've got the most to lose here.
It's true, and if we look at the series they've played so far. If we glance our heads back to the group qualifiers all the way back in week 1, it was 2-1 in favour of the Mustangs. Fast forward the next week, Kestrels managed to win convincingly in a sweep in playoffs. Kestrels then went on to win the next series, and the most recent occurrence between the two teams was in the Swiss stage of number 3. That one went the direction of Kestrels 2-1. So it shows you just how back and forth it is, that these teams throughout such a long period of time are still 2-2 in series in the grand scheme of things.
That's the fact of it, that they've had their chances between both sides to take apart games no matter the length of the series. But what is going to be the difference here is that, how much is that going to be the winning goal that separates between the two once it finally gets casted on through here? Much more better from the RAF point of view. Perfect positioning and placement by both of the two players there in that action of play. But it is, however, the RAF Mustangs' 6th attempt of a phase of play finally repelled back.
Smart movements inside the box by this hungry Mustang side, but at the moment they can't convert on these chances. Romus, I'm seeing him lunge forward for those third man demos, those boost steals at the back, and it's more forward thinking, albeit down a game.
Dave, the sign, JDN up, and Panzer's lurking around. Should be a defensive clear. It has at least reached one. Nobody here from the RAF Mustangs quick enough here to essentially release and have a snapshot on target here, or at least put the ball into a corner. And just like that there, we've seen 3-4 glimpses of the net, yet no goal to show for either side.
Spillage from Romus with the double touch against his own backboard. It's not going to worry the Mustangs too much, but this opportunity certainly could. JDN is going to play a soft touch, tries to follow from it. He's given possession away there.
Good bump, maybe another one on to the keeper. JDN spills, and the man that has stepped into the shoes for the Mustangs grabs the most important goal for them.
Welcome to the Pro League, Void. Lovely way to make a statement. After a game one which doesn't fall your way, suddenly all eyes on the newcomer.
That's our awkwardness off it here. I wonder, did they do any icebreakers? What's your most interesting fact that you know about themselves?
Most interesting fact I know about Void is he's made a difference here in game 2. And I'm sure that story's got so much time to develop. As JDN is going to push this ball to the right-hand side. It's a clear free ball for Romus to push in field, and Dave struggling in the boost department to make ends meet.
That's our awkwardness off it. You just drop back and potentially give the indication factor to the opposition how much is actually there in the tank here is Steven. Unfortunately, Void's committed here, so awkward 1v1 here is Panzer up. There is reinforcement, and Romus, he's essentially gambled there, and they have not been punished. I don't know how they haven't.
JDN up, has time and space to play with, and Padster's just taken an inch too far, and Romus, who's walked a mile to put that ball in the back of the net.
Just also want to point out to the right of your screen as the goal goes in, Void has unfortunately departed into the grassy bit of the pitch, and as well as the pitch here is Essence is still here, but not a body to be seen, and they've got a 2-0 lead now. The RAF Mustangs have to hold with just 2 players.
And there's no way that this game can be stopped. We're past the minute 30 mark, and these two teams have to wage war knowing that there is inherent advantage the way of the Kestrels. What a statement it would be for the Mustangs if they can cling on. At the moment, it looks like they're not just clinging on, but trying to craft opportunity. Dave with his back to the ball, Padster with his chance to strike, and that one is let loose by the Mustangs. And they're going to want every second of this replay back.
I'm going to be certainly be glad the fact of without sort of replay moved on, time is given to them. But Seiko, surely a wee bit of the dark arts need to be pulled out.
Oh, if you're a Kestrels fan, you might be egging them on to be indulging in the arts of the quick chats here, but Mitch has played that very fancily indeed as Void re-enters the field. And the Kestrels may be punished for their lack of clinicism in that couple of minutes of play. There is still time for them though.
Be surprised that they didn't go for a demo, a bomb, and just outright just being an annoying factor onto it. And that double commit by the RM Mustangs, leaving the man with a little bit of vulnerability at the back line. Steve whips it away here, and that sort of 2-0 lead felt nice. It felt comfortable. Now sitting at 2-1 while 1-0 down in the series. You could just sense here that the Mustangs are not enjoying this lead in any shape or fashion.
JDN beaten. Padster back towards the midfield. It's a big miss by that third man of Mustangs. And I have to give credit to the ingenuity of Mitch just to be cheating so close behind, knowing that there could be a spillage. And it's been a downpour.
Argue that was more bad positioning awareness up the defence of the Mustangs. Well, that's here or now to debate and argue. And why wasn't that brought out earlier? Panzer with a gem of letting that one drop.
Just watch him there. Oh, he's done two things there. He stuck his car forward. He's presented the bump chance in the minds of the Mustangs just to say, well, if you're going up for that ball, see you later. And then offered the shooting chance as well. And that's probably 3 consecutive options that the Mustangs had to mark in one single play there.
And they could have easily avoided a fair few amounts of those decisions, and from leading the game to an unfortunate disconnection, and even since they rejoined with all 3, suddenly ball finds the net, down 2-0 in the series. In a bit of traditional standard, that would have been match, set and game. Best of 5 by you, Psycho, when they find themselves with a reprieve here.
There is still an opportunity for this series to go a little bit closer. And when we have seen a gap of 2 games, it's been 3 games, Danny. Kestrel's taking a sweep on the Mustangs in a previous playoffs springs to mind. And I think it's the mentality of this Kestrel side. When they are firing on all cylinders, they continue to iterate on that performance. They never let go of the trigger, and they're happy to be aggressive even when they're winning. I think it just sets them apart.
Certainly is, and just that sort of now bets off it from the RAF Mustangs to find something that little bit extra special here, but in the grand scheme of things, it will eventually meet themselves into the Swiss stage. Is what they do. Theirs is going to be the major factor for at least their campaign for the Kestrels. They'll be looking at sort of going, what we maybe just might knock off the likes of the RAF Nighthawks further up on the table, never mind the Mustangs.
Mitch at the moment looks to me as if, quite honestly, he's the best player on the pitch. It's a gorgeous glancing sidewalk towards JDN. Definitely the de facto piece of solidity for the Kestrels that propels them through the good, the bad and the ugly. Real focus on his positional shape on the field. That's where he makes his big impact.
The fact that you're seeing this big, massive sort of lofted balls here by the British Army lineup, you just know how comfortable they feel the situation and not really giving it a thought here as Podster just drops down. Plenty of time here for either 2, but you would imagine it will be Mitch with the solo. Second touch would be ideal. Gets it past 1, and Jeromus, well, that's a mistake and a half. Suddenly not punished by, unfortunately, the Kestrels they normally would have that you saw in game 2.
Definitely so. Jeromus, big hoof to the corner, and he's got space to follow through, but JDN, more importantly, with the boost to get it done. As the bumps come in on the back lines between 2 members of the Mustangs side. It looks a little clumsy for a second, but they've gotten away with it.
Double. Oh, of course it was going. Just when you just sat there and saw that ball popped up, it was only a matter of time.
I'm telling you, this player is a serious talent, Mitch. Every single time he's got those opportunities to have a bit of freedom, he's clinical, and he does it in a way that looks so comfortable.
I give credit to the fact of, the ability to do it while in competition. It's easy, to be doing it in free play or occasionally in rank, but in the middle of a match and competitive setting, it's a different beast altogether.
Still time. Mustangs hunting for their opportunity to breathe light back into a series which has gone so far outside of their control. That's a big dunk down off of the crossbar. As Dave filters back in to give support, to keep this attack flowing. They're inching closer to possibility, but that dunk from Void not quite materializing.
This always seems to be the story. Not yet, but yet so close so far. 2 minutes still left here. Void in the awkward spot. Dave just to bail that one out. Good ball in terms of how it was spawning, but don't feel like Dave was necessarily playing for that one as the white light was flashing on the ground. If that went in, you would have said GG's right then and there.
Dave to the side. It's a free ball for JDN. He's very happy to contest, but he's missed out, and Padster's downfield, maybe for a pre-jump opportunity. Flip reset from Mitch, and a musty towards the top right. I am staggered that this individual quality from Mitch has been something that, quite frankly, I've not paid such close attention to.
But you don't have to pay attention to it, because when it's on front display as it has been, it's essentially on center stage, right at the focal point. And you know what? He's making it look very much easy.
Demoed away. JDN from the play. It's going to reduce the numbers advantage established by the Kestrels for the better part of a minute and a half. That ball's going to go past Padster for the bump. And the chase downfield. That's an own goal almost. Or is it? I'm not sure who had the last contact on that one.
There was a Void essentially trying to play it across with the Force 50, so you can sit there cruelly say it was an own goal, but it would have been an RAF Mustang that was still pressuring with the force of direction. So I would say Void's touch.
There you have it. Professional analysis from the established coach of many years. My eyes have deceived me once or twice this game. I've been thinking some of those audacious sideball attempts might be landing in the back of the net. I saw a attempted psycho from Mitch earlier as well, and he's really showing off all his tricks in the playbook as that ball filters in field.
Yeah, fortunately, this playbook might need a second. The man that was causing a world of trickery just sees the ball and says, you know what, let's smash it.
Let's not forget that little fake attempt by Daroma's absolutely empty, but thought if I jump for this ball, it might just stall that decision making by a couple of seconds, and it's granted that space. JDN then with one final play in regulation, perhaps, unless Padster can keep this one going. We do find ourselves in an overtime, Danny.
A rarity, it seems to be this evening. I think that's our first one, at least on broadcast.
It absolutely is. Padster then chauffeuring the ball into the corner, the safety spot. And I don't think I'm going to have too many warning signs flashing in my head for the Kestrel shape, but it's a double commit from the Mustangs. Dave eager to punt the ball downfield and give chase.
Popped. Almost gone. And Void with a difficult job. Dave just gets in time. And it could have been a costly mistake there, because essentially a 2-0 series. As it stands, a 3-0 sweep would be cruel, but history has dictated it before. It dictates it now. And unfortunately, the RAF Mustangs will have the cruelty of an ale to their record once more.
That's a star for future, if I've ever seen one. The best performance I've seen from an individual player in quite some time. Full credit to Mitch, full credit to the Kestrels for overcoming adversity, realistically, because the Mustangs, in the most recent attempts that these two teams clashed, got the better of them. And to come out swinging with quite that level of flashiness and confidence and precision, Danny, is the likes of which I haven't seen.
Joey, I don't sit there and disagree with you. Probably much, a breakout performance. And you know what a time to do it, especially with the Swiss stage just round the corner. You just have to sit there and look at it and sort of going, is the Kestrels the favourite up the three here? Because the Royal Navy Krakens is probably watching in this evening and saying, what are we going to be facing? So they were the favourites. I'll throw you this as a trickiness up the question now. Which one of those three is the top dog here?
Oh, that's so difficult. And I think if I had to guess, it would always be the Krakens, given their current form, if they can put together that full roster. And they've delivered performances which, in my opinion, in history have been worthy of getting through to that top four. Maybe sort of the same sort of quality of performance that we've seen from the Storm Shadows in past, sitting in the number 3 spot at the moment. I genuinely believe they have that quality about them. But of course, they are plagued with availability issues, as are a lot of the rest of the teams in this competition. So it really is a coin toss, honestly, on who you would think is going to progress. But Krakens in hot pursuit, I'd probably say the Krakens if they can, or sorry, the Kestrels rather, if they can replicate that form. But so much of the story left to be told, Danny.
Certainly is. I mean, yesterday alone, we sat there and saw the British Army Bullers versus the Sea Dragons for a grand final. The only two sides that we know for absolute certainty in that land. But from there onwards and down, you suggest Storm Shadows, the likes of the Typhoon should be there. But that is a key word, should. It's a question on will they perform in the Swiss stage?
All of which remains to be seen. And the Swiss stage coming at you live next week on the Wednesday, 7 o'clock UK time. So if you wanted to catch the action as 16 teams duke it out for one final time to gather points in preparation for the BFBS Pro League Grand Finals, the end of next month, you've got to tune into it because it is the match or the day to remember in the grand scheme of this competition, Danny. From myself in the booth, from Tangerine in production, and Danny, it's a good night from us.
Mate, you're lagging. What are you doing?
Good enough can cost you the game, so stop settling. Wifinity is built for real-life on base, so you can game without compromise. Hosted somewhere new? Take your Wi-Fi with you, no hassle. Get fast, reliable Wi-Fi with Wifinity. Use code BFBS50 to get 50% off the first 3 months.